Hi, my name is Lisa Richter. I'm Director of Industry Outreach and Growth for CSIA. Welcome to the Masterclass. Before we get started, a quick word about CSIA. Probably most of you here today are familiar with the association, but if you are not, all you really need to know that CSIA's mission is to help SIs build better businesses. How do we do that? Well, for starters, we have a team of volunteer SIs who have crowdsourced a best practices manual to help SIs scale their businesses. CSIA also offers a certification program and many other resources and benefits, including professional development, learning from your peers, and access to professional services experts, including insurance, financial, and legal, who understand the SI's unique business needs. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow your SI programs, understand your customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share your thought leadership. With thousands of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position yourself as a thought leader, and nurture prospects during their complicated buyer's journey. If you are currently a member, if you are currently not a member, now is a great time to join. Membership provides you and your entire team a full lineup of virtual events and other resources from accounting to sales to operations 365 days per year. Plus, being a CSIA member means you get special pricing for the CSIA Executive Conference in addition to other resources. If you are currently a member, thank you. Membership renewals are underway. If you are the primary or billing contact, you should have received notifications via email. If you have not, please check your spam folder. I'm noticing a lot of legit email is getting trapped in the spam folders. I think as IT departments are cracking down on all the cyber stuff that's happening. If you have any questions about the renewal process, let staff know. And one last housekeeping note before I turn it over to today's speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. That helps us stay organized. The session is being recorded, and you will get a link to the recording in the next day or so. At this time, I would like to turn it over to today's speakers. Take it away, Steve.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. We are both glad to be here and glad to have you here. I want to quickly do some introductions so you know who will be speaking today. My name is Steve March. I'll be acting more as the host. I work for Schneider Electric. My role is to direct our strategy as well as our sales team for partnerships with system integrators in the US. Next, if we could have you introduce yourself, Gabriel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gabriel de Tissot. I've been working for Schneider Electric for about 20 years, mostly in supply chain related job positions. And I'm now the cluster vice president of all the equipment factories in North America, which represents about 13 factories across Canada, the US, and Mexico. Very nice to be with you.
Great, thank you. Melissa, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Melissa Presnow. I've been with Schneider Electric for almost 10 years in a variety of primarily strategic roles, both global and local. I'm currently the Director of Offer Management for Industrial Automation in the US. And my team has certainly been working closely as the liaison between sales and supply chain.
Thank you, Melissa. And then we also have invited a member of our systems integrator community from Interstates. Doug, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, I'm Doug Brunsting. I work for Interstates Incorporated. We are a SI and contractor based out of Sioux Center, Iowa, extreme northwest corner of the state, if you've never heard of it. I am Vice President of Supply Chain for our company. I've been with Interstates 30 years.
Great, thank you. Great, and without further ado, then we're going to jump in. And the point of today is really to talk about a topic that I think has been, I won't say near and dear, but maybe top of mind for a lot of people over the last couple of years, and that is supply chain. We don't want to shy away from that. We want to face it head on and talk about what works and what we are working on and how we collaborate and how that helps everyone involved. So I'm going to just kind of toss the questions out here and let the panel respond as they may. In a couple of cases, we might direct something one way or the other. So let me start with, what have been some of the biggest challenges and impacts that you've seen affect the supply chain in the last couple of years?
I'm happy to start this. So I think that the challenges that we face have not been unique to Schneider Electric. They really have been throughout the industry and even beyond our own industry. But challenges that we've faced include really upstream components, as well as transportation costs and capacity, and inflation costs that really everyone is seeing. And maybe Gabriel has a bit more to add to that.
Yeah, actually, I think over the past 3 years, I think we are facing a big challenge, and not just in Schneider Electric, but all the multinational companies that are across 5 continents and 100+ countries. The year 2000s, we were rushing to try to regionalize and put factories close to the markets. And that has driven us to change our footprint. And I think the past 3 years have demonstrated that as soon as one country in the world faces some problems, immediately we can see it in many other locations in the world in our factories. So I think the big challenge we have is to try to make the right balance between what we want to source and what we need in terms of resources from other regions, other countries, all those international flows with the geopolitical changes, all the supply chain constraints. For me, it's the big barrier we have now is where to put our operations and how to tailor our upstream supply base so that it's close to the point of consumption.
Good. Doug, what about from your side as an integrator? What have been some of the big challenges and impacts that you've seen?
Sure. Obviously, lead times, how they've.
I think we lost.
Sorry,
there we go.
I got it back. Sorry about that. Obviously, lead times and how they've extended, and like Gabriel and Melissa said, that is not isolated to Schneider. We're dealing with that across all manufacturers that we work with. I think the biggest challenge outside of that is just the reliability of information. I think most manufacturers are struggling because they are sourcing components from others, and so the information that is being communicated downstream isn't always reliable. And so not knowing how to plan if a delivery extends past what you have been told originally has really been a challenge for our teams, and trying to continue to meet startup and shutdown schedules that we have across the country.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I'll ask you to continue on this this theme, and then we'll go back to the other panelists. So how have you responded to some of those challenges? What have been maybe some of the lessons learned over the last couple of years?
Sure. One of the things we did early on was to do several buyouts. We don't typically inventory our own material, but in this case, we have done that to have key components on hand. The other thing we've done is we've really encouraged the companies that we work for to give us the go-ahead early, even if we don't have an official contract. Give us a contract to at least get the material on order, so that we can get ahead of the game there. They're going to need the material regardless whether they use Interstates or another SI. So communicating that to them, it's really been an education in the industry. I've been surprised multiple times about companies that don't know what's going on in the supply chain, and continuing to try to bring them up to speed on the challenges that we're facing.
People operating the same way they did 5 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. For sure.
Melissa, Gabriel, any comments on how we've responded to those challenges or lessons learned?
Yeah, one thing that's related to the problem that I mentioned, that we rely a lot on many other countries and import-export flows. We've seen so much reliance on a few suppliers that make, like, the chips, manufacturing. Everybody's talking about it. It's completely strategic. It's not just the chips. And we want, for example, for North America, we have a heavy reliance in Schneider Electric for some critical components we make in other Schneider Electric factories that are patented with a copyright. we want to localize those in North America. So we are using we are looking at the weaknesses that were revealed through COVID in the past 3 years, and trying to figure out what's the right industrial plan to locally put what has been hurting us, so that if again there's a crisis that comes and impacts the whole world, at least it's easier for us to work with somebody who's closer and has probably similar constraints to what we have locally in the region.
So, yeah, it sounds like onshoring is a big part of avoiding some of the delays and
Absolutely,
challenges.
insourcing back closer to the point of consumption. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and to add to that, I just, I think really Doug mentioned it, communication and visibility is key, certainly for our customers. And we are trying to make sure that we're communicating internally within our teams, certainly between the offer team and sales and supply chain. We've got regular calls with our key customers because the information does change. Sometimes with upstream components, we're not getting the right information, and it really can impact our ability to deliver. So just having that constant communication flow with our key customers, I think, has been really critical.
Melissa, I'd agree with that. We are doing that with several of our manufacturers, weekly calls for updates, so that we just keep the lines of communication open. Another thing that I thought of as you were talking is we've challenged our distributor partners to beef up their inventory as well, and had good success with that across the board.
Good point. Good point. Sometimes there's multiple points where we can bolster the chain to be more adaptive and agile when the challenges hit. So in the midst of all this, we're all seeing the emergence of more and more gray market and black market suppliers, sources that are not the authorized channel or manufacturer or source. And I know that integrators may not want to go this route, but sometimes they might feel they have no choice when they're trying to meet a shutdown or a startup timeline, deadline, expectations of their end user clients. I'm going to ask both sides, but let me continue right now with the manufacturer side. What advice, direction would Schneider Electric offer with regards to those suppliers or those sources?
So maybe I can start, Steve. To be honest, it's the first time I hear gray or black market suppliers, but I think I get the essence of it. I mean, I've ended up on eBay trying to find electrical distribution parts that I normally buy from my usual vendors, because they were so loaded, their lead times were so long. Asking the manufacturer is great, but we know there's a huge network of distributors that might have a few pieces here and there. And this led to a bigger discussion of my company does not allow me to buy from eBay. It's pretty simple. So I'm not going to go to any gray or black market or, dark web supplier, whatever. For us suppliers, it's cost, but more importantly, quality and safety. There's no way we compromise on those. We need to be agile to qualify alternate sources, which is what we are doing. We're qualifying about 30 suppliers right now for more than 2,000 parts in emergency mode. But we still go through the same steps. We still audit our suppliers. We still hold them to the right standards. So I think that's Schneider Electric's policy is we are very wary about where to source what we need.
Right.
Yeah, and I would just add, part of who we are and our value proposition at Schneider Electric includes, quality and reliability. And, that's something that I would advise, anyone, and looking at the gray market, that's not something, even if they're able to find Schneider Electric products elsewhere, it's not something that we're able to warranty. So I think that's important to consider.
Right. And Doug, how do you as an integrator handle it I know some cases it may not be your idea, you may not want to do it, but a customer may say, hey, I found it here, why don't you go buy it there? How do you handle those kinds of conversations?
Sure. And that is the only time we consider a gray market, and we don't consider black market at all, but trying to differentiate from the two can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But if a client comes and asks us, exactly how you described, Steve, that they've found these parts out there. Would you please procure them? Our first response to them is, would you please purchase them yourself, to try to limit our exposure there. We've had our legal draft a document that we ask all of our clients to sign if we are buying a gray market product, to again try to limit our exposure and liability. The other thing that we're doing in instances where we've had to just simply use it because of schedule, we're tracking those parts. We've kept the original parts on order. Our intention is to go back and install the original manufacturer parts once we receive them. This is just a stopgap to get us by to meet a schedule.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I know from my background, having been both as an integrator and then now working for a manufacturer, that yeah, you don't want to go to those sources because you have liability. So you try and counsel the end user, the customer, this is not a good idea. Let's work something else out. Let's try and find another source. Let's keep working on it. If you have to shift the liability to them by asking them to buy it, you can do that. But even then, I know we've had conversations with end users who were seeking to do that and saying, you realize that part is not going to be under warranty. That is not going to be covered if there's a problem. And when you're talking about a factory or water treatment, or those are risks that most plant managers don't want to absorb, but sometimes maybe they don't think of it, or procurement may not recognize what is or is not an authorized source, so we have to educate. So good. And how do you manage some of those tough conversations? What's your advice when there are deadlines on completing a project, and you have to talk with the end user about what is or is not going to happen according to an original schedule? How do you handle those conversations?
Well, first of all, for sure, you have to have them early. If you're seeing an issue down the road, make sure you're communicating that to your client early. Try to eliminate as many surprises as you can. Look if there are workarounds that you can continue to try to keep them on their schedule. One of the things we've done is we've basically made a point person here at Interstates that is kind of the tiebreaker. So we have all our projects, visibility to all our projects and what we have on order. And if we need to, in essence, move a product from one project to another to meet a deadline, our project managers have done a really nice job working together to try to manage that so that we can continue to take care of our clients.
Gabriel, Melissa, any comments on when you've been engaged in those tough conversations?
Yeah, I would second what Doug just said on early notification. And actually, we've developed what we call a Glass Factory online platform where we can share with our customers directly and the project managers what's the stage, what's the progress of their job. Is there any risk on upstream supplies, on maintaining the assembly start date, the confirmed ship date? And I think this is really the key, because we know everybody's late. We know everybody's got extended lead times. We know everybody's got a tough performance on service level. It seems it's recovering. It's much better than a year ago or than 2 years back. But for the customers, the real big problem is if they don't know early enough, and if we just give them a bad surprise 1 week before they thought the equipment was shipped, that's where you end up in liquidity damages discussions, or threatening, or I'm not going to order any single thing from Schneider Electric anymore. And I've seen the evolution ever since we are taking care of this, and now we give 4 weeks notification before we start the job on the line, if we know we're going to be late, 4 weeks in advance. So that's about 7 to 8 weeks before we're supposed to ship, we tell the customers. And when we do that, usually they're okay. They understand, they work with us, they can rearrange their on-site receiving team, the cranes, the logistics, all of it. They have time to react. I think that's the most important.
Yeah, and I think also it goes back to, and maybe also looking forward to my next question. It kind of harkens to an approach of partnership, of collaborating. Sometimes we look at it as I've got to get what I want, and that's going to mean somebody else isn't going to get what they want. And if we instead kind of look at how can we both get what we want, or how can we all get what we want, the customer and the manufacturer and the maybe the distributor and the integrator, how can we pull that together? And I know, for example, Doug, that we've had a couple of instances of working with interstates where we had a customer who was frustrated because there was something that was taking longer than they thought it was going to. And we've been able to sit down at the table and say, let's look at what the options are. I know in some cases, Schneider Electric has been the option for customers that were frustrated because they couldn't get something from other manufacturers. Some of you in the audience who were at the conference last year may remember the shirts my team was wearing about our ability to supply PLCs quickly. And we've had customers who've rewritten designs and specs because of an ability to start up a plant. In another case, working with interstates, I know for a customer, there was something that we thought we were going to be able to get initially, and then it became a delay factor. But we were able to sit down and say, okay, what are the options? Well, we have another item, same form factor, maybe higher capacity or characteristics in some nature. Maybe it's even a little higher cost item, but let's talk about that. And if we can get that part quicker, can we provide a discount to make it so it doesn't cost as much to the customer ultimately? Or how can we collaborate to get this project going and done? And those kinds of things, I think, have really been what's underlined a lot of the success we've had with our supply chain and with our delivery partners, is an ability to sit down, figure out a solution, and then follow through. Let me ask, and I guess let me start with Melissa and Gabriel, and then we'll come back to Doug. What have we done upstream to improve relationships with our supply partners, and how has that helped? So you mentioned, Gabriel, earlier about some of the manufacturers that supply raw material or parts that we use in our technology. What have we done upstream to improve some of those relationships, and how has it helped?
So we've done a lot of things. The first thing is we've extended the visibility of POs we give them from whatever the lead time was to minimum 3 months, some categories 6 months. Electronics, we place 1 to 2 years, depending on the strategic aspect of the components. With NCNR terms like non-cancelable, risk, you cannot reschedule it, and you cannot cancel it. So this is a huge commitment that help us with the suppliers. Because they know, we're in it for the long term, and we give them visibility, and that's very good for them, of course. Then we froze that window. We froze 3 months. We can't ask our suppliers to change any date within a 3 months window. Few exceptions tolerated, but 95% plus will not change. We've also deployed consignment and stock agreements. We've worked on our forecasts, of course, because we were pretty bad at forecasting. So we really had to make a good effort, because when our suppliers work with 50 weeks lead time with their own suppliers, no chance they can respond to twice the demand within a 3 to 6 months window. It's just impossible. And the last thing is we've actually, we've had to stop working with some suppliers and consolidate with the bigger ones. And that was a big effort, because we had a long tail of small vendors here and there making just a few bucks of spend for us. And when you go to those suppliers, sometimes they give you priority, sometimes they don't. So we regrouped and we refreshed our supplier of choice strategy to be able to really keep the ones that are engaged with us.
Interesting. Okay, that's good. That's good. What have you seen, Doug, in terms of working upstream to education in both directions? What have you done with your supply partners, and how has it helped?
Yeah, I think, we talked about it earlier, just regular communication has certainly helped. I would say Interstates has gotten to know our manufacturer partners for a long time, long before long before we've had these challenges. That's been a priority for our organization, to know people at the manufacturer level, so that, you know, there's times you need a favor and then you've got somebody to call, and they can't always produce that. We understand that. We don't expect it. But to be able to have an open line of communication basically to the factory and the people that are closest to the factory has been a huge advantage as we've tried to work through some of these challenges.
Right. I think it comes, yeah, it just all comes back to communication, as we've said. Knowing that the difference in getting a part there is a shutdown or something of that nature, or liquidated damages, may help a manufacturer to be able to reprioritize where they wouldn't if they didn't know that. So that kind of communication is certainly important.
Yeah, Steve, I would just echo that again. You know, communication and visibility are so important. You know, as we strengthen the relationships with key suppliers, and as Gabrielle mentioned, sending, you know, POs 2 years in advance, it's critical that, you know, internally we communicate well and have a strong relationship with sales to understand what is the demand and how are we planning appropriately, and sending those right messages to our upstream suppliers.
That's a great point. I know we've been tasked on the sales side with exactly that, with indicating where we know as early as we can, and putting more detail in than we might have had to otherwise, to help when there are tough decisions to be made. And so, yeah, I think again, opening the communication further, more transparency is helping everyone accomplish what they need. All that said, I mean, one of the things we keep coming back to is that one of the real challenges is with visibility. I know that Schneider Electric has been very successful at getting parts and products to our partners, to our delivery partners, to help our customers' projects get finished. I know that we've done better than many in certain areas of the portfolio. But I know that again, that challenge comes back sometimes to visibility. It's where it maybe would have been a simple overnight or a next week kind of thing, and now because of challenges, it should be a month or two. If the visibility changes week to week on what's coming in and when it will arrive, and you're trying to tell someone. In fact, I heard this yesterday on a call about a particular project that they wanted to know how quickly, but more importantly, they wanted to know when. They wanted to know that it wasn't as much about how quick as could you guarantee this is when it would be. What have been some of those challenges, and you know, what's behind that, and then what are we doing to address those challenges? Gabriel, Melissa, could you speak to that?
Sure. I mean, Steve, you mentioned in some cases we're doing better than others, but you know, we still have a ways to go in certain areas. It's a continuous process of improvement and getting better visibility, and sometimes it's things we can't control on our end. Again, it could be upstream suppliers don't meet their commitments. So again, I think a common theme throughout this has been communication and visibility, making sure, you know, we have tools in place to be able to plan appropriately and share information. And then when that information does change, proactive communication. So both with our customers and upstream, really proactively communicating, I think is key.
And I would add, I mean, looking back in the past 2 years, we had huge fluctuations on transportation a year and a half ago. Air shipments, air cargoes, railway, ground, whatever, you name it. Of course, ocean freight. And it took us a year and a half to get out of this situation. I don't see this anymore at all, really. So I'm very happy, and this gives us a lot of confidence in terms of not having week over week very bad surprises to share with our customers. Because when your life hangs to the fact that the plane needs to land in Chicago airport and then needs to be trucked to Nashville in Tennessee, and you're hoping it's going to arrive on Friday and it shows up the Wednesday after. You send people home, you decommit to your customer, you cancel shifts. I mean, it was a real nightmare. Now it's a bit easier because we know if it has shipped or not from our supplier. And the real question is, has it shipped or not? If it has shipped, we know it's going to come within a week or two, and we can make a schedule around it. And we also have much less disruptions, I would say, labor-wise. I have some facilities a year ago that suddenly 40% of the people show up with COVID. Well, you shut down the plant for 10 days in half. You just run half the speed, and it can be just as simple as they all went out for a dinner, to relax, and not even with their families, like as a team building exercise, or even with their families.
Yeah.
But in some areas, I mean, it used to spread so fast that very suddenly we'd have to tell customers, hey, sorry, we couldn't foresee that, and that's where we were. Today it's not like that anymore. Today at least in Schneider Electric in North America for power systems, we know what's going to be late, and we know what's already secured. There's much less uncertainties we are noticing in our own internal operations and upstream supply chain wise, including transportation.
That's good. That's good. Have you guys, Doug, on the interstate side, any specific actions in terms of improving visibility?
Again, it goes back to the regular conversations we're having with our manufacturers. We have been able to get visibility at the distributor level with some of our key partners on what they have in inventory and what their lead time expectations are, which has definitely helped. Yeah, really, it's so I sit on both sides of the fence from a SI and a contractor standpoint. From an SI standpoint, it feels like the reliability of the information has been better. There hasn't been as many surprises. As a contractor, it's a daily struggle. I wait for the phone call almost every day, which surprise are we going to deal with today? So yeah, that has helped our automation group immensely from a planning standpoint, and with what they have coming up, especially business hasn't slowed down.
No,
it's robust, quite frankly, and so we've got a tremendous amount of work this summer that we're trying to plan for, and having reliable information has made a huge difference.
Yeah, I know, but just back to the comments that have been made throughout our conversation about communication. One of the things that Schneider Electric and Interstates do together is we have a regular cadence of calls where we have the people involved in projects on both sides and or sales on both sides on the calls, and we have 2 or 3 major topics, and one of those is how can we develop a partnership? Maybe what are the skills that are needed for training, or what are the solutions that you maybe don't know about, need to know about to offer to some of your customers. But then we also talk through specific projects. Who's the next engineer we need to talk to, or where are the parts for this one, and what do we need to do to get those here more quickly? And again, that just having that level of information and knowledge on a regular basis, because we have a close relationship and we're collaborating, makes a huge difference, I know, in the customer's satisfaction at the end of the day. And as I always say, happy customers buy more, and that's important to all of us. So that's good. One of the kind of buzzwords that we hear out in the industry a lot, especially these days, digital transformation, the digitization journey, or the digital transformation journey. And I know I have spoken to a number of our partners about the fact that I feel like one of the things that helped Schneider Electric to be so agile and to do so well throughout this, even in spite of, again, we all face challenges, we all had problems, but for those of you who didn't know, Schneider Electric was, I think in 2021, was number 4 on Gartner's supply chain rankings globally. And in 2022 was number 2. We actually moved up the rankings and won an award for some of what we've done. And I feel like a lot of that traces back to that we had begun a digital transformation journey prior to the pandemic, prior to some of these problems becoming core to everybody's daily lives. We had begun doing things to transform our factories, transform our supply chain. Are there any specific instances, Gabriel or Melissa, that you can speak to in terms of how that digital transformation has affected our efficiency?
I go first, Melissa.
Go for
Sure.
it. You started.
Well, I mean, to this topic in my eyes right now, this is the best way for me to help the people working in the plants to save and free up their energy and to have a better work-life balance. It's pretty simple, you know. If all my systems are connected together and my team manages the data accuracy properly, we basically don't need to communicate to anybody. You know, we just need to give access to the system, and then people can get the information they want for the project they want or the order they want. Today, this is done through 15 emails between 3 or 4 people, 5 different text messages, follow-ups, meetings, back and forth. I mean, we're wasting so much time because our digital information does not propagate where it should be to whom it should be. And we have a lot of systems, but they are still too disconnected. So, I mean, Schneider Electric engaged on digital transformation a decade ago. We've done very good on smart factory, master data management at the group level, that's for sure. But it's not visible in supply chain environment, in challenging situation or crisis. All of that goes out the window thus far. Everybody relies on talking to people more than, oh, I'm not going to look at your lead time in your system, but I know your lead times, they're all wrong and you push them out by 6 months. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to Gabriel or Melissa or Doug or Steve. I need somebody to tell me what's going on because your systems is wrong, right? So that's why I mentioned Glass Factory. Glass Factory, to me, it should decrease by 50% the number of emails, phone calls that my customer service reps in the plants have every day and every week. And that's more time for them to make sure the data, the schedule, everything is on track and the system shows the right information to the customers. So to me, yeah, digital transformation, it's the difference between life and death for the people in operations when things get tough. It's just that simple. It's critical for our survival.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, I think digital transformation is so important because when we can measure something, we can action it. And this allows us to really make better decisions. And as the situation changes, you know, potentially with upstream components or quality issues, you know, we need to be able to react quickly and have real-time information. So that's why it is critical. But I will also add, you know, the point that you made earlier, Gabrielle, is that in times of crises, sometimes that all goes out the window and everyone, you know, wants to escalate their most critical issue. And it creates a lot of inefficiencies and it takes up a lot of people's time. My team often acts as to use the word Doug used earlier, the tiebreaker. You know, we need to allocate to critical projects and that's important. And we need to do that. But, you know, bypassing the system can create a lot of confusion as well. So it's important that we have tools that we can trust. We have information that we can trust, and I would say we've certainly made improvements, but we're still on a journey there.
Good. One of the favorite examples I have of that digital journey and some of the ways it's helped. Some of you may be aware that Schneider has some manufacturing facilities that are World Economic Forum lighthouses for IIoT, for Industry 4.0, for the digital transformation. And one of them is our Lexington factory. It was opened in 1958. So this is a 65-year-old factory. I won't go through all of the things they've done, but just as one example, they leverage discrete lean management from Aviva. That software's reduced paperwork by about 90%, reduced unplanned machine downtime by 6%, and increased visibility into the operation. So just about all the points we talked about, right? Reducing downtime, increasing visibility, just from that one solution. And for those of you integrators out there, one of the things that we encourage is trying to work with your local resource from Schneider. We can do virtual visits, or in some cases live, depending on the planning and scheduling, in order to show your customers how they can, because we're all working with factories, right? We're all working with plants of various types who are dealing with these same types of supply chain issues, and who need better visibility, who need less downtime, who need all those kinds of things in their operations. And so we can actually show some of those lessons learned, how we've accomplished it, what we can do to create what you can do for them as a system integrator. I think that that can be real beneficial to you. So let's talk about the future. Everybody wants to know about the future. Everybody pull out your crystal ball, and let's talk, what are we doing to adapt and prepare better, and what are the trends you're seeing? What's the forecast? Does it vary by product? You know, what does the future look like, to the extent that you're able to comment on that?
So I'm happy to start here. So I think when we look to the future, I think it's a great time for automation in the US. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there, whether it's from infrastructure spending, from companies looking to reshore to the US. So hopefully, Doug, that's what you're seeing as well. And I think it's really important that we have that communication and understanding from the sales teams of, you know, what their customers are seeing, what the potential is in the market, and that we communicate that internally so that we're prepared for the future. We're making decisions to increase capacity as necessary. So really, again, back to that same communication is key, but I think that the future really is bright, and we need to take steps now to make sure that we are set up to deliver what we need in the future.
And what you're saying, Melissa, is exactly in line with what I was about to mention. This year, I'm opening 2 new factories. So the footprint for power systems in Schneider Electric North America is going from 12 to 14 factories. And I'm still getting questions about, is it enough? And I've been told that we're now in the biggest period of investment in the US since World War II. And when I look at the forecast my business leader give me, basically this year I'm going to take $1 billion of backlog that I can't make. I can deliver X amount of products, but I'm going to get X amount plus 1 billion of new orders. And it's forecasted to be roughly the same next year again. So after having invested into 2 brand new factories, big ones, that increase about 25% the overall capacity, we built up so much backlog and past due orders over the past 2 years, plus these new investments that are triggered in this side of the world. I think we're not going to stop building factories for a few, maybe 2 or 3 years. So for me, the future is how to tackle this growth, how to tailor our upstream strategy to, just like we said, in-source back some critical type of resources that we need. And there's more work than we can fathom for everybody in our company for the coming years in the region. So we're looking at growth.
I'm hearing similar things that on the one hand, we are seeing throughput increase, and therefore backlog being, processed, and shipments increasing, and that's all good and makes everybody happy. But we're also seeing orders increase, and in some cases those are large projects, large capital projects. Maybe they were held earlier because of everything that was going on, and now they're being turned loose, and therefore, the challenges are the resolution is coming, it's getting better, but it's not going to be an overnight. And that just underlines and highlights the continued importance of partnering, of collaborating between the manufacturer and the delivery partners. But it does harken to things continuing to improve, so that's good. Doug, what are you seeing on your side? What's your intel on that?
Steve, if I knew, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be in Vegas or someplace trying to cash in on something. But yeah, I think what you just said is really what we're seeing as well. There is so much backlog in the system, and the orders don't stop coming. So for these factories to catch up has been a challenge. At one point, I thought maybe towards the end of 23, we'd see some significant improvement. I'm not sure we will at that point, and it's a little farther off in the future. You talked about trends. I think one of the things that as a company Interstates is looking at doing is how can we help support manufacturers? We are investing heavily into manufacturing ourselves. It's a way to help alleviate some of the challenges that we're seeing out there. Can we partner with manufacturers to help build some of their components and equipment? We're seeing distributors do that as well. So that's helped take some pressure off the system, and has really been beneficial to us, and one of the reasons why we're looking to do that ourselves at an increased level.
Excellent. Let's go around one last time if there are any closing comments. If not, that's fine. But I'll just call off the roster, and then if anyone has questions online, we have time. I think the chat line is open. That's probably the best way to submit those. Any closing comments or thoughts, Gabriel?
It's a very open-ended question, Steve.
Of course.
Well, let me share how I feel, because I mean, we've been feeling under the weather for 2 years in a row, and not talking about people like me. It's more for me, the people really on the ground in the plants, in the DCs, running the trucks, running the planes. I mean, all the people involved in the supply chain, they've had it bad for a while. So we are seeing that the supply chain is recovering. It's the first time in 2 years we start to have this, inner confidence that's coming back. So of course we are seeing that COVID probably it's over, and the new normal has become the normal. But more importantly, it seems that all the bits and pieces that were going wrong before, now they start to align. So yeah, for me, the closing comment is, I hope that the worst is behind us, and that everything we've been doing is going to pay off, and finally help our employees go back to a rather normal work life.
Good. Melissa?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I really do hope the worst is behind us. I think we've made a lot of improvements, and while not all of our lead times are quite back to normal, we've made good strides. We have a number of products that are back to normal, or are likely to be there within the next couple quarters. So I think that's good news. But as we said, we're in this era of really super growth, and so it's really important that we continue to communicate both upstream and downstream with our customers, with our key suppliers, and make sure that we are planning appropriately for the future so that we can all benefit from this growth.
Excellent. Good words. Doug?
Yeah, I would just echo what Melissa said earlier. It's an exciting time. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity out there, and with the changes that are taking place with smart manufacturing and digital transformation, it's opening up even more doors, especially for integrators like ourselves. I'd just like to thank Schneider for the opportunity to participate here and share some of our perspectives, and would reiterate that our partnership continues to grow, and it's extremely important to have those partnerships, have that open line of communication to continue to work through the challenges that we are still experiencing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll echo that I would encourage any of the integrators that are listening to this. That's what we've seen be the most successful strategy is the better communication we have. And again, if you don't already have it, at least for Schneider Electric, I can say reach out to me or a member of my team, and let's schedule a cadence. Let's have a regular call where we can talk about not only how we can grow together, but how we can address the issues when they come, how we can keep the customers happy, and so forth. And sometimes those also turn into how can we help that customer improve their supply chain visibility, improve their the manufacturing that they're doing, the visibility for them to be more efficient, to keep their customers happy, and especially to the extent that software is involved. A lot of times, those types of projects may not be as constrained by shipments and things like that as hardware centric types of projects. So we're happy to talk collaboratively about those ways that we can come together and solve the customer's problems, and look forward to doing that more. Lisa, let me hand it back over to you, and I don't know if there are any questions or any closing comments that you'd like to make about upcoming events.
Yeah, so I would encourage you, Steve, to put your contact information in the chat for people if you can while I'm doing these last few comments here. And yeah, so on behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank our speakers today for this informative discussion. And I would also like to thank Schneider Electric for sponsoring this event. And of course, thank you for attending. Be sure to bookmark the CSIA events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. And that's a wrap. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.